Hey y'all, I am still alive, just been busy with other priorities like usual. Anyways, with the release of the Halo the Series Season 2 today, I figured I would sit down and rewatch the first season after not having seen it since it first came out and give it a proper climate report. In all honesty, I had no motivation to do this because I don't remember much that was good from the first season, so this video uploaded a bit later than I had initially anticipated, but here we are. This video really should be titled I rewatched Halo Season 1 so you don't have to, but whatever, it can be both for this occasion. Also, I know I'm like a year or two late to this discussion, but that's kind of how this channel rolls, so don't expect a whole lot of things you haven't heard already. Also, I will be going episode by episode, but not full breakdowns, just the good and the bad, what I like, dislike, the usual. But with all that being said, let's dive right into the best series ever made for television.
And now for something completely different.
Episode 1, Contact. Oh boy, this kickstarts the whole series. Basically, in this episode, the Covenant attack the best known planet in all of Halo lore, Madrigal, leaving the best character ever to be created by 343, Quan Ha, alive. Spartan 2 Unit Silver Team, led by Master Cheeks, Jimmy 117, intervening where we are first introduced to them. The action's okay, even though a lot of the CGI is just straight mid. The choreography is just passable at best, and the elites don't even look like elites to me, honestly. They could be brutes. I know they have the split jaw, but they literally could be brutes with just how they appear. But anyway, moving forward in the episode, Jimmy discovers a Forerunner keystone, I guess is what they call them, in a cave, triggering childhood memories, which, for whatever the show's purpose, makes sense apparently. And meanwhile, on Reach, the infamous city that everyone knows and loves, the best city ever made in Halo lore, Reach City. Of course, what other city did you think I was gonna say? New Alexandria? Nah. Anyway, Dr. Halsey clashes with Oni Admiral Parangoski over Cortana and her creation, the AI based on Halsey's brain. Honestly, this part is fine, because Cortana's creation was a big, unethical, risky decision made by Halsey in the real lore. And then moving forward, Jimmy defies orders to execute Quan for whatever god-forbidden reason, somehow earning her trust. And Sergeant Captain Keyes orders Jimmy's arrest, but he uses the keystone to escape with Quan somehow by powering the ship, which also doesn't make sense. This episode is so wild. This episode has a lot of problems, and I know the entire series is taking place in the stupid Silver timeline, which was only created after the fact to take accountability for all these mistakes in canon, and to just be lazy. So Halo is apparently a multiverse now, at least that's the excuse for this show's existence, but I digress. Anyway, just from a TV series perspective, not even thinking about the Halo IP, it is riddled with problems. Characters are constantly doing things they really shouldn't be because of things set up previously in the episode and what happens at the end of the episode. Like, for example, if Jimmy is so worked up over his emotional past and getting all these childhood flashbacks prior to his emotional chip that he takes out in a later episode, which we'll get to, where the infamous Master Cheeks is born, wouldn't he defy how he is feeling and still kill Quan? It's just some food for thought. Anyways, the show, when compared to Halo, is obviously deviated so far from the source material, it's hard on where to start when talking about it. The Forerunner artifacts only work for some humans, not everyone. Characters are race swapped and completely changed for whatever reason. In addition, before I am crucified over that opinion, the reason isn't because Keyes is black now. It's because there's a perfectly suitable black character from the Halo lore that they could have used instead, leaving Keyes the way he probably should have been. That character being Sergeant Johnson, which I feel that the writers of Season 1, or whoever was behind this decision, decided instead of two great characters, we can mix them into one. The actor for Keyes does a fantastic job, I'm not dissing him at all, but his material is mediocre at best. But, in fact, everyone who acts in this show is doing a fantastic job. But their material is just crap, like 85% of the time. Just super childish and just awkward, cringy writing and dialogue. It's so weird. It just doesn't feel right. It doesn't feel mature, and it doesn't feel gritty like it's supposed to. You know what I mean? Because, like, Halo's always had intelligent writing. It's had the one-offs, you know, the one-liners, the goofy stuff. It's always had it, but it's always been intelligent. It's always had good placement. It never felt out of place, and I guess that's where I'm trying to go. Is the writing just feels so out of place. But anyway, as for the acting, I don't mind Pablo as Jimmy. He does a great job. It's just the writing is so bad. It almost feels like he felt awkward delivering some of his lines, but maybe that's just how I perceived it. Another thing is having a Covenant human spy, or whatever Makee is supposed to be, which also doesn't make sense. Okay, hold up. Sorry, I'm getting too ahead of myself. With all that being said, let's get back on track. I feel like I went on a slight tangent there. Episode 1 isn't great, and it ends with Cheeks taking off his helmet, which brings another one of my opinions out. It doesn't bother me much anymore, it's just that it was done so quickly and distastefully. You have to remember, this is the first time we've ever seen Cheeks' face. It is described in the books, shown briefly or partially in some of the graphic novels, and, of course, at the end of the Halo 4 Legendary ending. However, we have never seen a fully mature face for the Master Chief, so it really should feel impactful when he finally takes it off and the audience isn't one with the Chief anymore, when it's finally separating the character from the audience, if that makes sense. But it doesn't. If they saved this moment for the end of the first season, that would have been awesome. And if they really built up to it, that would have been great. Don't show his face for the entire season. Maybe the final shot when they're flying away in the Pelican after a battle, he takes it off finally, you know, or something. But anyway, let's keep moving on because there's a lot to talk about. Let's dive into episode 2, Unbound. This is where a cool character is introduced, but he really doesn't have a whole lot going on for himself to give him that extra interesting factor. And his introduction is kind of just mediocre. I'm trying to keep a non-biased opinion, but y'all know I dearly love the Halo franchise, so it's quite hard for me. But to briefly summarize, young Jimmy catches Spartan Soren fleeing during a flashback. He also allows his escape for whatever reason, which I don't think real Chief would do, but anyways, in the present, Jimmy, Quan, and the Keystone reach the rubble, a space pirate sanctuary thing that's being led by Spartan Soren, or Soren at this point. He's a Spartan, but he's not a Spartan anymore. He defected. But I think it's also an insurrectionist base. I don't remember. It's just, they don't really talk about it, and if they ever do, it's in a throwaway line. But anyway, they reunite with Soren, who's now a leader of it, as I previously mentioned, and on reach, Halsey faces scrutiny, promises the solution, which is Cortana. Keyes sends Silver Team to retrieve Jimmy, the Keystone, and Quan. And meanwhile, on High Charity, this is our first real shot of High Charity, and kind of like, you know, the inner machinations of High Charity, gives the audience a feel for what it is. Kind of. It would have been cool to like see the Dreadnought and all that stuff, aside from just seeing it through a window. But anyway, the Elite reveals Jimmy's activation of the Relic, who we all thought was the Arbiter. Makee, the human Covenant spy, somehow insists on recovering the Keystone. And on the rubble, or in the rubble, whatever, however you say it, Soren introduces Jimmy to Ref, who should be a Jackal, by the way, but here he's just some crackhead who hints at an alien superweapon foreshadowing Halo.
When you first saw Halo, were you blinded by its majesty?
Blinded?
Paralyzed? Dumbstruck?
No.
But he and they shouldn't know it's a superweapon until they actually step foot onto the ring after accessing the silent cartographer. But whatever, silver timeline. But even so, Ref, who should have been a Jackal, being captured by the Covenant going crazy and overhearing their conversations, he should have known that Halo isn't a weapon. Halo is, you know, some religious artifact to start the Great Journey. But we'll get into this plot hole a little bit later because it does get brought up again. Anyway, Jimmy surrenders to Silver Team. He's consoled by Halsey, promising a new beginning. Basically, he's ungrounded from timeout. This episode is just whatever, man. I really don't know. This is where the show starts to branch out and do its own thing, which in some respect could have been cool, but it just falls so flat for me and others, I'm sure. Especially, this would have been a perfect introduction to a Covenant species, the Kigyar, or if you're a regular human being, a Jackal. All I can say about this episode is like what I said before, with the exception that Soren is cool because Bokeem Woodbine is actually just a cool and talented actor who can display that kind of respectable swagger that they were going for with the character, and I think it comes across pretty well. And I guess it's cool to see his character's mutilated arm, which just kind of shows the repercussions, side effects from, the Spartan 2's augmentations going wrong. So I do give them kind of a point for that, but I mean, they only briefly talk about it for maybe like a minute or two, and that's about it. But, it's still cool. But aside from that, though, the episode really doesn't do anything. It's kind of just filler, which you're going to see is a common recurring theme, but I'll mention it later. Moving on to episode 3, Emergence. Young McKee on her stupid dumpster planet, which is extremely hilarious to me, by the way, is discovered and rescued from a Covenant invasion in a flashback. It's so goofy, this scene, because she's reading a book with a boy, and then he gets tased to death for reading. It's absolutely insanity how this actually got greenlit. Anyway, she is discovered, she's rescued, and for whatever reason, the Covenant likes digging through human trash planets for sacred water bottles, I guess. Anyways, they rescued her, which is something they would have never done, because she can Mac trigger a Forerunner device. In the present, McKee leads a raid on a UNSC vessel to locate the magical Keystone, another desert dumpster planet from the first episode. This scene was actually kind of badass, I'll give them some credit for this, just for the simple fact that the hunter worms are moving around like water, taking Marines out, and just something we've never seen before except for Halo Nightfall. Only I think it was actually done way better here, to be honest. Moving on, Quan persuades Soren to take her to Madrigal because Cheeks left her with him. But this is so she can reunite with her insurrectionist clan. I don't care. Meanwhile, on Reach in the famous city of Reach City, Perrin Goski orders Miranda Keyes to study the Keystone secretly, while Halsey implants Cortana into Jimmy's brain, aiding him in removing the emotional suppressive pellet I mentioned earlier. Jimmy then makes love to the Keystone again, recalling memories of Madrigal and a complementary artifact that it inserts to. Kind of like how Jimmy will insert another artifact into a character later on. Convinced that the second Keystone is on Eridanus 2, which I think is John's homeworld in the real canon, Jimmy and Halsey travel there to investigate. Yet again, another mid-ass episode, aside from McKee doing the shit with the hunter worms, which was kind of dope. Aside from that, although it makes sense as to why, even though it's still stupid, as soon as Jimmy removes his pellet, he becomes like a prepubescent child that acts like he's hitting puberty for the first time ever. It's super wild, to be honest. It's so out of character, I feel like, even if that was in the lore. But anyway, Cortana, she makes a real introduction in this episode, which was great. She looks okay, but hearing Jen Taylor's voice provides some real feeling of home and familiarity while watching this. It makes you feel like, okay, now we're watching Halo, which, that familiarity really hits home for me, so I really appreciated that they actually brought Jen Taylor in to do the voice and not just some random actress, sorry. Granted, she's planted inside his body, which is so weird, so there's the plus for bringing her back, but here's the negative. She's planted directly in his body. I know in the real lore she interacts with Chief through, I think it's his neural lace, if I remember right, but she's not inserted directly into him. And she doesn't have the ability to control him at will, which I also find extremely stupid and OP. Anyway, it's just a meh episode again. Are you starting to see my pattern here with discussing the episodes individually? There's a lot of nonsensical filler and just nothing happening at all, even though stuff is happening. It's just wild to me that some of these decisions, man, I don't get it. A lot of this plot, if you want to call it that, doesn't really amount to anything in the end, and it just kind of keeps going. But it never feels like it builds off of something established previously in the show. It just jumps from scenario to scenario with just a little thin bridge to connect everything together. And the pacing suffers greatly because of it. Anyway, episode 4, Homecoming in Reach City. And no, I won't stop calling it that. If the writers are stupid enough to come up with that name, then I will be stupid enough to keep saying it. Kai-125, she helps Miranda analyze the Madrigal Keystone from the earlier episode. She reveals its connection to the Covenant's halo, which again is so unbearably dumb. It's not even funny anymore. It feels like a bad fever dream watching these first 4 episodes, to be honest. Because, like, for instance, on Madrigal, right, Kwan's search for allies fails due to fear of Covenant and UNSC-backed Governor Grath, which is all just flat out fucking boring. It's a waste of time. Soren's ship is confiscated. Kwan seeks help from her aunt, I think it was, or her grandma, and she learns of a mystical tribe, which the show just loves to interject. This is Halo, not Destiny. Quit trying to force space magic into this shit. Soren and Kwan evade Grath's troops, heading to the spaceport to leave Madrigal. On Iridanis 2, Jimmy, Halsey, and Cortana explore Jimmy's old home, which, whatever, you can take it or leave it. They just didn't make it compelling for me. They discovered drawings of Forerunner Keystones that he drew as a kid, which wouldn't make any sense, but whatever, what do I know? And anyway, Cortana aids in recreating his home with like a hologram or something. I wasn't even aware she could do something like this, but it's kind of cool, I guess. Not the most unbelievable thing in the franchise, or the TV show for that matter. However, it just somehow triggers memories of the second Keystone's location. It just does it. And I'm like, bro, what? One of the memories is like a visit from Halsey when his parents were alive, but I thought in the lore, Halsey just meets with John, right? They play the coin toss or something like that. But anyway, I hate all the childhood memory stuff that they tried to interject in the TV show. It's just filler. It's a waste of allocated resources, I guess, is what I just hate about it. I understand what they're trying to do. It's not that it's, completely pointless, I guess, but it just, none of it works for me in the slightest. I felt like it took away from everything we could have gotten. Silver timeline. But anyway, episode 4 really just is filler. It's a nothing burger, as mentioned before, but here it really shines just how much filler they're trying to put in between like cool episodes with actual action. Already we're about halfway through this, Marines. Stick with me.
Remember, you're a leatherneck.
We move on to episode 5, where we finally get some action, and this is the series' somewhat midway point, narratively speaking. It doesn't feel like a whole lot has happened, huh? Anyways, in episode 5, Reckoning, taking place on Madrigal, we start with Kwan escaping after being tied up by Soren, stealing his pistol and vehicle. How the hell did Soren get bested by a small girl who has no fighting experience when Soren has had some Spartan training? This makes no sense, even for the plot of the show. Like, seriously, this is so dumb. Another plot hole. Anyways, on Iridanis 2, UNSC prepares to secure the Keystone. It triggers some stupid energy release because it can. It alerts McKee and the Covenant somehow, just because it can, I guess. Jimmy touches the Keystone. He recalls more fucking memories of his abduction by Halsey and Oni troops as a child. And here we go. In a baby fit rage, which is the real bastardization of his character in this series, he attempts to harm Halsey by, no joke, jumping into a Superman punch and screaming like a little kid who didn't get the Fortnite V-Bucks he wanted. But Cortana disables his entire body and puts him into armor lock like from Reach, but stupider. A Covenant Corvette attacks, causing heavy UNSC casualties. The show's first real introduction to cool combat, Chief hijacks a Banshee and crashes it into a Phantom, which feels like something he could have very easily do in real canon. He grabs a shotgun and starts wiping the map of Covenant, blasting them in the face and just doing some cool-ass choreography. Atriox then somehow makes an appearance before Velvedam, who is the Arbiter, by the way, in the games, and should have came first to Atriox's introduction, but whatever. I don't know. In real canon, the Arbiter would still be a shipmaster at this point, but I felt like a Gold Elite dropping down to fight Chief and retrieve the relic would have been cooler, and it could have set up future season conflicts between him and the Chief. But anyway, Chief runs at him for no reason, gets yeeted by an energy mace, and the Covenant retrieves the Iridanis 2 Keystone that they spent 2 episodes looking for. Then, Jimmy somehow shoots the BR-75 like a fully automatic MA-5, and McKee is left behind in a drop pod as the Corvette escapes so she can become their double agent and Master Chief's new toy, if you know what I mean.
Magic Bow Wow.
This brings us into episode 6, Solace. Speaking of which, you'll find some solace into the fact that we should be about halfway done with the video. In this episode, after the attacks on the UNSC forces from Iridanis 2, everyone returns to Reach, whilst taking McKee into custody. The UNSC, skeptical of her claims of being a Covenant prisoner, interrogates McKee. She reveals both she and Jimmy can activate Forerunner technology, which is another major point of my hate for this show, as I previously mentioned. A select few are chosen rather than all humans, as it should be. This further reinforces Master Cheeks as some special chosen one, when really he should just be a soldier doing his best while these events occur. McKee suggests the second keystone is likely on the Covenant holy planet Raskatska or something like that, or however you pronounce that shit. Parangoski replaces Halsey due to Jimmy and Kai's behavior post-emotional suppressor removal. But Jimmy learns the dark truth about the Spartan 2 program from Halsey, sharing it with a recovering Kai. Testing the magical keystone again, Jimmy and McKee experience orgasms, visions, whichever you prefer, of them being on a Halo ring. The problem with this show is that we get a really cool sequence of action scenes that obviously had some cool ideas behind them and cool creators that wanted to make stuff like that, and the execution's fairly decent. And then we just get another nothing burger of an episode or two. It truly ruins the pacing when they should be incorporating both storytelling into the action and vice versa. Anyways, not much for me to say on this episode that I haven't already. Let's try to press on. Episode 7, Inheritance. By this point in the show, you should be inheriting a sense of hatred, despair, and distaste for a truly abominable show. Now listen, because I didn't preface the video with this first, I'll mention it here. If you enjoy the show, then that's fantastic, and I commend you. Don't let my opinion ruin your feelings towards it as a whole. But you have to understand that even in a different timeline, which is such a lazy justification by the way, this show in its own right, even without the Halo IP or paint job, is just flat out bad. But you can like things that are bad. Plenty of people love the Fast and Furious movies, but any of them after like the second or third one are just flat out stupid. But you can still enjoy and have fun with them. Nothing's stopping you. I don't know how you do that with this show, but I'm sure there are a few of you out there that can. Especially when episode 1, 5, and 9 are the only ones really worth watching, and even then, they're just barely worth it. The real problem stems from the Halo name. You can't call it Halo and then not respect the source material to any degree. You break trust with fans, you target towards an audience who wanted to see a reprised Halo story on the big screen. Like older people who played the games a long time ago, an example being my dad. He loved the games in the past and quit after Halo 3 because he thought the story wrapped up really nicely. So I told him about Season 1 and he said, ooh, that could be really good, and he was super excited. Season 1 came out and he barely even made it past episode 3. He didn't even finish it. So the target for a broader audience is a terrible argument, and it doesn't work here. In addition, like 95% of the fans are unanimously in agreement that this shit fucking blows Master Cheek clappers. So at the end of my point here, to skip right along, who is the show exactly for? Who is the broader audience? Who is the targeted audience in general? Go ahead and try to answer that question in the comments below. Anyways, let's get back on track. Episode 7, Inheritance. In this episode, Soren engages in more space piracy while Quan seeks answers from some guardians, space wizards, cult mystic people on Madrigal about her family's purpose. Whatever. The cult revealed to her that Quan's ancestors were tasked by a Forerunner AI, basically a monitor of one of the installations, at least that we can infer from what we saw, to protect a portal on the planet. Following that vision, Quan reunites with Soren at her father's outpost because somehow by this point in time Soren isn't done with her stupid shit, which is surrounded by Venturegrath's troops. Despite being outnumbered, Quan fights back. Soren holds off Grath's forces as Quan detonates the outpost's fuel supply, killing Grath and his forces. Quan pays Soren and they part ways. Thank God. With her determined to find the portal and assume her role as its protector, she's gone. Thank goodness. Adios, R.I.P. until Season 2. My good lord, what a whack episode Episode 7 is. It's the biggest filler. Quan's visions and dying 100 times to the chief for whatever reason he was there, or I don't know. I don't really know what was going on in that scene. I don't know what they were going for. But then her seeing a monitor of an installation on Madrigal and so on, I don't know. I truly fell off here, even during my rewatch, because this is some seriously whack shit. Remember that fever dream I was talking about? This is like tripping acid, which I think she basically does in this episode. Nothing to say aside from this crazy ass writing. Nothing really happens. We press on to my favorite episode in any TV show ever. This even beats the Covenant mission in Halo 3 or Tip of the Spear in Halo Reach. Those levels have nothing compared to this one spectacular episode. That being said, we now take a look at episode 8, The Birth of Master Chief. I'm sorry. It's actually titled Our Big Green Virgin Is No More. Okay, I'm making terrible jokes. It's actually titled Allegiance. Can you guess why? In the episode, following shared visions of Halo, Jimmy sees McKee as a potential ally despite UNSC doubts. Jimmy discovers the Covenant's goal to initiate the Great Journey, which shouldn't be mentioned till later, by using the Halo rings, which also contradicts the knowledge from episode 2 where the Jackal tells him it's a weapon, not a portal. Anyways, Jimmy convinces the UNSC to let McKee test the Keystone. They develop a bond, and a very physical one at that.
Bow chicka bow wow.
And McKee reconsiders her loyalties. Halsey, attempting to capture them, disables UNSC comms and somehow controls Spartan Riz and Vanek, which somehow is supposed to make sense. I know they have the emotional pellets in still, but why should that make them borderline robotic? Regardless, Cortana warns him of this. They then fight, and it's an okay scene, I guess. It just kind of felt lousy and like more filler for the sake of time extension. Miranda uncovers McKee's involvement in the Corvette attack with the worms. McKee tasered and restrained, reaffirms Covenant loyalty. She goes right back to him. She frees herself, which, whatever. And she touches the Keystone. She bids a farewell to Jimmy through some dumbass shared vision. Because apparently they are interlinked and in love now. Because, you know, Master Chief loves pounding them POWs strange.
Yeah, for my cool trick, I'm gonna tame food for strange.
Tame my what?
I can tame food for strange, bro.
This made me cringe so hard first time watching this, and the second time, honestly. I was yelling at my TV like some freak who's never touched grass. Master Chief is like my superhero. You know how people love Batman and Iron Man? This is like my version of that. And witnessing him
clapping cheeks
going down this route of bastardization was absolutely mind-boggling. It's like that meme you see nowadays. Tell me how to assassinate an iconic character without telling me how to assassinate an iconic character. It's so wild. But at this point, it's said and done, and it will, I will confirm and call it now, will have repercussions in Season 2, unfortunately. Okay, y'all, if you made it this far, I appreciate your cheeks, but here we go. The final episode, the ultimate finale for Season 1 of this iconic TV show, as Hidden Xperia would say. Episode 9, Transcendence. Now that we have transcended past the ass, we can get into some cool action. In this episode, McKee escapes Reach, and Captain Keyes diffuses the standoff with Silver Team by revealing the truth about the program to Vanek and Riz, because apparently they were left in the dark about it. Kai helps apprehend Halsey, realizing it was a Flash clone. It was cool. This was actually kind of a cool scene. Kai runs at the ship, just kind of showcasing how fast Spartans can be if needed. She outran a bunch of Marines and Warthogs. It was pretty cool, to be honest. With Cortana's help, Jimmy figures out Raska's location and leads the Silver Team to recover the dumb Forerunner plot devices stolen in previous episodes. On Raskatska, they engage the Covenant forces. The action's pretty sweet, though not perfect. We hear 10 seconds of the Halo Warthog Run theme in the entirety of this 9-hour TV show, or just under 9 hours. And the only Halo music that is really in the show, aside from a few seconds during the introduction, which Season 2 will somewhat fix, thank God. Halo music is a huge part of Halo's identity, thanks to Martin O'Donnell's iconic tracks, and not just the Halo theme, but a good 90% of every Halo OST are absolute bangers, and you're gonna hear some of that music in this video. Anyway, as we keep moving, McKee activates the Keystones. She saves Jimmy, I think. I'm not really sure. It got really strange here. And it begins to reveal some star map to a Halo ring, which also puts Jimmy into armor lock. Kai frees Jimmy by shooting the key, which shuts down the keystone. Jimmy flat out dies by standing in front of Atriox's mace. And Cortana takes control of his body. This is like the only time the Master Cheeks acts like Master Chief. He doesn't say a single word, he doesn't make any noise, and he kills everything with 100% precision. Only thing is, this isn't John acting like a badass. This is Cortana controlling him like a zombie, which yet again is so wild to me, and just, I don't get the decision here. Cortana rescues Silver Team and escapes with both the keystones. As they depart, Kai questions Jimmy, but he remains silent behind the helmet, as he should. Granted, she isn't talking to him, she's talking to Cortana controlling him. The final episode rolls to credits, and the first season of the series is wrapped up and ready to air. Holy hell, what a mouthful, but we made it, and thanks for sticking with me to the end. We're jumping straight to the climate report meter, because I've wasted enough of your time already. With taking everything into account and reassessing everything we talked about here today, I would have to give this a very cold rating. This is the first time in my climate report's history of a super low rating, and yes, I'm even including Destiny 2 Lightfall, which was my first climate report. What an honor for this abominable, character assassinating, narratively deviating piece of filth. I cannot determine whether M. Night Shyamalan's Avatar movie or this show is the worst adaptation of a franchise ever. It seriously has to be on par with it, if not worse. I despise this show, and because Season 2 is finally here, it has set the bar enormously low for Season 2 moving forward. The reason it's not in the worst possible rating is because the action scenes are cool, and that's what I created a Paramount Plus account to see, as well as a faithful adaptation to Halo's source material. Something like what The Last of Us TV show did, which I also made a climate report for. Go check that one out. I gave it pretty high praise. Not, 10 out of 10 praise, but it's pretty up there. But since we didn't get a faithful adaptation, the only points and credit I can give this show is the art style and combat sequences. And that's about it. Like I said at the beginning, the acting is fine, and I'm not going to go out of my way to hate on the actors, neither should you. They're just doing a job that they're paid for, and I think for the most part they did them well, but the material they were paid to use and perform with was absolute schlock. Stephen Kane definitely wrote one of the Halo stories of all time. Anyway, that not only summarizes Season 1 of Halo the series, but my thoughts and opinions on it as a huge Halo fan. Some things you have definitely heard from other people online, and maybe some new opinions as well. But that wraps it up, though. You can definitely anticipate a Season 2 climate report when the show wraps up in about 2 months. Bet your Master Cheeks I'll be here for that. But anyways, I hope y'all enjoyed my bashing, because there's a lot of negatives, and I'm sorry, I had to do it. I mean, the only positives is the acting's fine, the material's schlock, but the acting's fine, the action's cool, the set is cool, the set designs are cool, and the armor's cool, except for maybe like the trash planet. But yeah, I mean, that's the video as a whole. What are some things you liked in Season 1? What are some things you hated? What did I not mention that you would have liked me to talk about? What would you like to see changed or improve upon in Season 2? Leave all your thoughts in the comments below. I read all of them. Anyways, though, that wraps me up. That's enough discussion about this show that truly doesn't deserve it. Anyways, have a great rest of your day, y'all. Peace out. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you in the next one.